Enigma is Parametric Systems' automated application development suite. The first training video showed the Enigma 2020 interface, and the way of creating an application, including programs in it, and defining data within the application. This video covers adding business rules to the application, and then including them in a program. Following on from vehicle search are the vehicle add, and vehicle mod programs. Both are connected to a decision symbol labeled class. This brings us to consideration of the way in which Enigma handles business rules. Specification of a business rule requires a new program. 2 actions are required for each business rule. The rule's action changes the screen, and allows the business rule to be specified. The logic action will also change the screen, to allow the business rule to be applied to specific data. This will be shown, after the class rule has been created. The program is confirmed, and the action is selected. There will be only one action in a business rules program. Business rules are stored as decision tables in the user database, or as comparisons, that return an error message, if the comparison is not true. This is a general graphic of a decision table used by Enigma. There are 3 user data fields required for each decision table. Dataname 1 will contain the y-axis values. Dataname 2 will contain the x-axis values. Dataname 3 will be actioned by the result of evaluating the x and y-axis values. The value applicable to the action will be found in the intersection of a row and column, in the decision table. There are 9 methods of evaluating the values in the x and y axes. Not all apply to both axes. This decision table shows the validity of the methods. These are all detailed in the appropriate help texts, and may be increased in the future. Once the values locate a specific intersection, the value contained in it is applied to dataname 3. There are 5 ways of applying the value at the intersection. These are also detailed in the help text, and may also be increased in the future. This business rule is quite simple. It allocates a competition class to a vehicle, depending upon the vehicle's wheelbase. The business rule can be defined like this. This evaluates to a decision table of 2 columns, that need to be recorded by Enigma. 1 y-axis column and 1 x-axis column are required. The y-axis value will be evaluated using the band method. So, the vehicle wheelbase entered into the application will locate a row. The y-axis values are entered when the decision table is maintained in the application. The x-axis will be located using the default method. So, whatever value is in the first x-axis column of the identified row, will be moved into dataname 3. Dataname 3 is not yet specified. This will be done when the logic action to use the rule is included in a different program, in this case the vehicle add, and vehicle mod programs. Once specified, a business rule can be applied in any program where it is appropriate. Dataname 3 can also vary between different applications of the rule, if that is required. Dataname 1 is selected, or entered and given attributes. The find by method band is selected. Some find by methods automatically connect to certain other methods, or actions. In this rule, default, must be used as data name 2. It should be selected, or entered and given attributes. Once used for one rule, this data name can be used for any other rules that require a default x-axis location. For an x-axis find by selection other than default, the number of columns required in the x-axis should be entered. This number should be known from the analysis done for the application. It can be changed later, if necessary. This is not shown on this screen. Each column will have a data name allocated to it, which is automatically recorded with preset attributes. These data names take the form of n, data name 2 for each column, and do not record in the application database. When the decision table is formatted for the user interface, the value in the x-axis, against which evaluation is done, will contain default, or all of the selection list alternatives. Where default, or selection, do not apply, the values required can be specified as the caption for each column. This will be shown when this user interface definition is considered in a later video. Once the rule has been defined, it must be saved. The definition will then be shown. The program can be cleared, and the next program specified, which will be vehicle add. Vehicle add needs to use the business rule that has just been defined. To do this, the logic action is selected. The screen is reformatted to allow the logic definition to be made. Select the business rule name. This will be the program name in which the business rule is defined. Select, or enter, the data name that is to receive the result of evaluating the rule. If this is a new data name, then enter the attributes. If this data name is specified to be a drop-down selection list, then the results that can be entered into the decision table will be limited to the selections available for this data. At times it is necessary to apply a rule only when certain conditions exist. When that is the case, the data name containing a value to be tested by the condition can be specified, or entered. The condition is specified by selecting the appropriate logical operator, and entering the value against which the comparison is to be made. The logical operators are shown in JavaScript notation. The specified comparison must return a true evaluation for the rule to be applied, and the data name should contain the value to be tested, before the rule is applied. Where no apply if data name is specified, the rule will always be applied. The y-axis method of timeline requires a base date from which the period is calculated. This period is the value determining the row in the decision table to be used. The data name containing the base date can be specified, or entered, when necessary. Similarly, the workdays action, which calculates the end date of a period, requires a base date to be specified. Specification of the base date is only available if it is required. It is independent of any conditional application of the rule. It is only shown here for instructional purposes. Save the logic specification. There can be more than one business rule applied in a program. The same business rule can be applied to more than one data name 3 by repeating the rule specification using different programs and then creating a logic action for each data name 3. Similarly, one data name 3 can have multiple rules applied to it. The rules will be applied randomly when the values in data names 1 or 2 are changed and any condition for the application of the rule is satisfied. Data name 1 and data name 3 must be included in the content of the change, or record, action that will be considered soon. Data names 1 and 3 must be stored in the application database. Data name 2 may also be stored, if required by the application. Where data name 1, or 2, is specified as a drop-down selection list, then the content in the selection list should be recorded, using the user application, before the business rule content is recorded, using the same application. Any change made to the value in data name 1, or data name 2, will cause a re-evaluation of the business rule, and therefore, a change to the value in data name 3. If more than one rule applies to data name 3, then any rules applied after the re-evaluated rule will also be reapplied. This is an example from a different application. Here the total cost, and the date due, vary depending upon several values. Date of birth, interpreted as age in a timeline. Service type, a selection list of 3 values. Priority gratis reason, a selection list of 3 values. The date on which an application was received, and the type of document being processed. Watch what happens for ordinary applications. These are the rules and logic that have been specified to implement the required business rules. Please, pause the video to read the detail. By including a logic action in a program, the generated program will include the processing required to load the decision table for the rule. Where more than one business rule should be executed in a program, there must be a logic specification for each rule. The specification of the vehicle add and vehicle mod programs introduce other concepts within Enigma. Both of these programs change the data values held on the database. Vehicle add records new data, and vehicle mod changes existing data. There are data definitions to be done, and content and control lists to be created. There can also be returned data values to be available to Enigma. These are specified in the returns list that is available when a record or change action is specified. This allows the key values to be available, particularly for newly recorded data. Both programs use actions in a particular way. Both require a provide action. As the name suggests, the purpose of provide is to access data from the database, so that it can be displayed as information. The provided information is controlled by the control information specified for the action. With vehicle add, the provide action will not return any values, but it will cause Enigma to recognize the information, and consequently, provide space in the program. Providing empty information is just as legitimate as returning information with values. Both create the conditions necessary for Enigma to process the information. With vehicle mod, the provide action causes Enigma to recognize the information values, and allows Enigma to display as many of the values as have been returned from the database. Not everything that is requested has to have a value. Both programs will populate a user interface with the information that they have found. Specification of the user interface is covered in the next video. Once the user has done whatever is necessary with the information, the vehicle add program uses a record action to place the information into the database. Vehicle mod uses a change action to replace the information in the database. The difference between these two actions is that change expects to have data that needs to be altered, and record expects to have data that has not been previously recorded. However, where empty information is supplied by vehicle mod, and is given value during the program process, the database will record the value as if it had been specified in a record action. Both actions will return whatever is specified in the returns list, which replaces the control list on the screen. Any data value can be returned. Usually this will be the unique key value for the database record, or records, created by a record action, or modified by a change action. Any processing errors that occur within the database program are also returned to the user section program. These will usually show incompatibilities between the content and the database specifications. It is important to reiterate the fact that information is different from data. The information processed by the vehicle add and vehicle mod programs should be data that is applicable to the context in which the programs appear. In this case, vehicles. The information is not constrained by any knowledge of the database design. It is a function of the Enigma database maintenance program to accept whatever is sent to it, and to record the values accurately. Similarly, it is a function of the maintenance program to retrieve whatever data is to be provided as information from the database. The vehicle-led program has all the information it requires. As you have seen, there can be a lot of repetition when specifying a program. Enigma contains programs to reduce the repetition. We will return to vehicle mod in the next video, where some of these efficiency programs, and screen design and some navigation facilities will be considered.